My gunplay in this game is bad because I actually upgraded my gunplay. Like I said, this was a kind of experimentation of RPG aspects and action that, towards the end of the game, works great. At the very beginning, where the gun is telling me I'm not hitting stuff because my numbers aren't high enough, it's actually quite frustrating. But it's justified by the fact that weapons in this game have infinite ammo.
That's true, but it's also interesting, like, you'd think that if you pick biographically that she's a war hero, shouldn't she have a little bit of a bonus on that?
Everybody stay calm.
Well, that's more we pick the soldier class, not the other ones. The other ones have even less. They have more space wizard powers, but less combat skill, if that makes sense. So which one do you want?
I'd say stop right there, because I'm not sure.
Nobody moves a muscle until we know who you are.
Nice going, Cole. I told you we should have stayed hidden.
It's okay. We're all on the same side here. We're just farmers. We've been hiding ever since that ship first showed up.
Attack details.
Tell me everything you remember about the attack.
The three of us were working the crops when that ship showed up. We just saw it and ran. I don't know what happened to the rest of the crew.
They were by the garage, over near the spaceport, right where that ship came down. No way they survived.
You don't know that. We survived. If they made it to the garage, they could have had a fighting chance.
Beacon.
Do you know anything about the Prothean beacon they dug up?
We're just farmers. We heard they found something out there, but it never really mattered to us. Not until now.
What else can you tell me about the ship you saw?
I was too busy running to get a clear look at it. I think it landed over near the spaceport.
Tell them about the noise, Cole. That awful noise.
It was emitting some kind of signal as it descended. It sounded like the shriek of the damned. Only it was coming from inside your own head.
So this is actually a
Probably
super
trying to block
important detail.
communications.
Whatever it was, felt like it was tearing right through my skull. Almost made it impossible to think.
I have to go.
Hey, Cole, we're just a bunch of farmers. These guys are soldiers. Maybe we should give them the stuff.
Jeez, Blake, you gotta learn when to shut up.
What's going on?
You have something to tell me, Cole?
Some guys at the spaceport were running a small smuggling ring. Nothing major. In exchange for a cut of the profits, we let them store packages in our sheds.
Like what?
What kind of packages?
I found a pistol. Figured it would come in handy if those things came back. But you'll probably get more use out of it than we will.
Thanks.
This should help.
So you may have
move
seen
out.
how those two options were grayed out. We've not gone one direction enough yet or the other to start threatening or persuading people with our score. Which is why eventually we're going to have to pick one direction to go or the other.
Cool.
Because we could actually have gotten more stuff out of them just then if we'd had more abilities or a higher score in one or the other. So now we're going to take a chance to show you the awesome upgrade system. By awesome, I am being super sarcastic.
Oh dear. Look at all the numbers.
So this is
See, this feels like an RP.
This is of the three, this is the most RPG. The third one is the least RPG. I think the second one gets the best balance in some regard. And as you can see, every single weapon I have has an upgrade tree to it, which is really annoying. And I am going to upgrade pistols first, and assault rifles. And do we want to go with Charm or Intimidate initially off the bat?
Charm, because we're going to be like Steve Rogers.
So we're going to be nice this time around.
Yeah.
We're going to go nicely. We're going to go the nice guy approach for the entire game.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, can you balance the two?
You can and you will eventually because they start giving you boosts to each other. But, like, see the Renegade versus Paragon gauges? We've gone more Paragon so far. And if we'd gone just Paragon or just Renegade, see how the Renegade is slightly filled? We'd have had other options in that conversation we just had with them.
Oh, okay.
That would have given us more options. Let's auto-level you up. Blah, blah, blah. So, and a little fun misogynist detail, I guess. They managed to make Ashley go from a bad character model in this game to just gorgeous by the third game, and it's a little disconcerting.
No.
Oh, and I also should probably do this.
Oh, before I forget though, Lovecraft.
Yes, Lovecraft, while I do upgrades.
So what Manuel seemed to bring out a little bit is that sort of Renfield, which is Bram Stoker, or that Lovecraftian true detective idea of the harbinger, the guy who says you shouldn't go over there because something horrible happened and something horrible will happen. And especially with the idea that we saved that girl by knocking that guy out.
Yeah.
Lovecraft is very much about what is seen cannot be unseen. And the people who see how terrifying the world really is tend to go a little mad.
Just a little.
When they see that. So we'll see, especially because it's interesting in terms of the development of this world. They're being very gentle in how they ease us into this, and yet at the same time, it's not heavy on the exposition. There's some, we haven't seen these in 200 years kind of lines.
Well, and you don't realize something you've picked up on, which is this idea of slowly going mad by vicinity is actually a major plot point of the Mass Effect franchise.
Awesome.
We'll get to that in a little later on in the game, but keep in mind, remember that horrible sound they were mentioning they were hearing and stuff like that, and I mentioned it's kind of important? Mm-hmm. That ship that came down
Something's moving.
isn't necessarily a ship.
Crates.
Wait! Don't shoot! I'm one of you! I'm human!
You need to be more careful.
Yeah, so stop going with the
Sneaking up
middle
on us like
option on
that
the
nearly
right
got
from
you
now
killed.
on. Go high left or
I'm
bottom
sorry,
right.
I was hiding from
High
those
left,
creatures.
high right? Wow.
My name's Powell. I saw what happened to that Turian. The other one shot him.
Tell me what happened.
I need to know how Nihilus died.
Whoa.
The other one got here first. He was waiting when your friend showed up. He called him Saren. I think they knew each other. Your friend seemed to relax. He let his guard down. And Saren killed him. Shot him right in the back. I'm just lucky he didn't see me behind the crates.
Then what?
Where'd Saren go after he killed Nihilus?
He jumped on the cargo train and headed over to the other platform. Probably going after the beacon. I knew that beacon was trouble. Everything's gone to hell since we found it. First that damn mothership showed up, then the attack. They killed everyone. Everyone. If I hadn't been behind the crates, I'd be dead too.
How come you're the only one who survived? Why didn't anyone else try to hide behind the crates?
They never had a chance. I was already behind the crates when the attack started.
Wait a minute. You were hiding behind the crates before the attack?
Sometimes I need a nap to get through my shift. I sneak off behind the crates to grab 40 winks where the supervisor can't find me.
You survived because you're lazy?
Lucky break for you.
If you hadn't snuck off for that nap, you'd probably be dead just like all the others.
Yeah, I guess. I don't really want to think about it.
None of that's really important to go into.
We need to
Let's
find
go.
that beacon before it's too late.
Take the cargo train. That's where the other Turian went. I can't stay here. I need to get away from all this.
So yeah, I'm getting a lot of Lovecraftian vibes.
It's
actually,
very Lovecraftian. It's Ooh. So something they actually have in this game that they got rid of in the later games is health versus shields. And health versus shields is something I wish more modern shooters would bring back, but in an effectively interesting way. Like, a lot of games these days will have, oh, you can get 5 points in after your shield goes down and then you die, but we never give you a way to replenish your health, which is annoying, but it is what it is. This game gives you both, and your health more or less never changes until you start upgrading stuff like your soldier skill and stuff like that. Your shields you can boost up through the roof, though.
well, that's
Make it
way more
ridiculous.
realistic. I like
Yes,
that a lot.
me too.
Especially because I'm the queen of, like, in Uncharted, I'm like, give me all the health, so that it's idiot-proof.
So you notice I'm using the pistol a lot. I'm using the pistol because the one I have right now doesn't overheat. I mentioned the unlimited ammo option earlier. What this game does is, let me have it overheat quickly. that gauge building?
Uh-huh.
It's overheat. Instead of having clips to reload, I just can't fire for an extended period of time once it overheats. Now, there's ways around that, like swapping out weapons once one overheats. But for the most part, if you're actually using your weapons effectively in this game, you should never have that issue. And some of the machine guns in this game have just ridiculous overheat scores and stuff like that. There's one we'll eventually pick up that you can, I think it's like shoot for a solid 30 seconds and only get to half heat or something like that. And I mentioned some of the shortfalls of this game's RPG system a little earlier. You may have seen it when I was doing the upgrade tree. Keeping all of your squad mates and yourself
Set the
properly
charges.
equipped in this
Destroy
game
the entire
is a
colony.
monumental
Leave no
pain.
evidence that we were here.
There is an obscene amount of micromanagement that goes on. See, the arm keeps changing size?
That's weird. He's like an angry tiger.
Again, you're actually surprisingly not that far off. The Turian culture is a very warrior-driven, honorable society. I guess the comparison I'd make into human history is they're samurai. They're kind of like if the samurai were the dominant culture through the entire progression of a species, essentially.
I mean, and that's an interesting thing to talk about too. Is we were talking about alien design and sort of the humanoid
Demolition charges. The Geth
style.
must have planted them.
Yep.
Hurry! We need to
But
find them all
the
and
other
hunt them
thing that's
down.
really interesting about the way that aliens are generally designed in sci-fi is that often they'll take the structure of one human society, like the concept of samurai or the concept of Spartans, or awkwardly, in Star Trek, sometimes you have these weird things where you're like, I think you're just using anti-Semitic stereotypes here with the Ferengi. Like, what is this?
Oh, we have those in this game too, eventually.
And that's the interesting thing about Star Trek in particular is that Leonard Nimoy, who I can't believe I'm having to explain that he played Spock, Leonard Nimoy talks about the Vulcans as being an inherently Jewish culture in terms of how they interact with the world and make ethical decisions, which is absolutely accurate, especially because Leonard Nimoy was a big part of the way that the Vulcans were developed as the show went on. But when you get to Star Trek: The Next Generation, you get the Ferengi, who are obsessed with money and treat their women horribly and are just supposed to be sort of the villain species of the show. And they really invoke a lot of medieval, the evil Jew medieval stereotype that you see in morality plays, or, the Shylock that you would see in Shakespeare. And I think that's one of the interesting things about the way that aliens are developed in general, is that often we have this notion of what is the cultural zeitgeist of this particular alien. The Romulans are a more military version of the Vulcans in a lot of ways, and the nature of the idea that an entire species could be defined by one culture is sort of strange, but it ends up being a easy speculative fiction shorthand.
Well, and so unlike Star Trek, and admittedly I am not the Star Trek buff you are, this series actually explains how that works better. And it's actually quite interesting. They have an entire species called the Solarian later on that is defined as one culture because they've chosen to define themselves that way. They've essentially wiped out the kind of other concepts of culture within their culture.
Yeah, and I think part of it, and I'm not necessarily saying that it's bad storytelling. I mean, it more has to do with the fact that because as humans in actual reality, we don't have, at least as far as we know, we have not addressed the notion of life on other planets, so we haven't addressed the idea of culture on other planets. But we certainly talk about, what American culture inherently is, and what Japanese culture inherently is, what British culture inherently is. And of course that's monolithic and myopic and very dangerous.
We thought this world was safe.
But we do have to sort of talk about the cultural tenets that get pulled in there. So this stopped being about nerd stuff and started being about sociology and hegemony. So I can talk about that, but I'm not sure that the Venn diagram of people who want me to explain hegemony are the people watching this.
No, this is anthropology. This is what we do.
All right, guys, let me explain hegemony for you. Hegemony is the idea that for any of the young men or young women out there who are getting bugged by their parents to get married or settle down and have a kid, the idea is that hegemony is the overarching cultural force.
Sorry to cut you off, cutscene.
Cutscene.
We'll explain all this after we get back.
Normandy, the beacon is secure.
This is
Request
amazing.
immediate
Actual working Prothean technology. Unbelievable.
It wasn't doing anything like that when they dug it up.
Something must have activated it.
Roger, Normandy. Standing by.
So here's a little fun detail about that kind of falls in the fan theoriness of the Mass Effect universe. Note how Shepard's not the one chosen by the beacon initially. It's Kaidan. Kaidan's actually the Messiah if you stop and think about it. And yes, it may be the fact that Kaidan was closest.
No, don't touch her. It's
But
too dangerous.
there's a whole slew of fan theories that go on in later games that basically go along the idea of Shepard's not the one that's supposed to do all this, which is why it doesn't always ever seem to quite work out the way we want it to. So keep track of moments where maybe Kaidan might have done something better or differently just based on Kaidan's personality versus how we choose to play Shepard.
I really like that squid ship.
It's
Hey, squid ship.
very Cthulhian in its design.
Chthonic, you might say.
Yeah.
We identified the ship that touched down on Eden Prime. The Normandy. A human alliance vessel. It was under the command of Captain Anderson. They managed to save the colony.
And the beacon.
One of the humans may have used it.
This human must be eliminated.
So for those playing along, that's not a blue-skinned human. That's another alien race that'll get introduced in a couple of minutes.
However, their breasts are very similar, ironically.
They are my least favorite species in this entire game because of how human they are, and while it's a very interesting theory of how they go about doing them species-wise,
Doctor?
we'll talk about it more when the character shows up. That's
I think
them.
she's waking up.